Welcome to this little interview. I wanted to talk a little bit about compassion and forgivingness. I want to talk about it from the dualistic point of view and from a monistic point of view, from an awakened point of view. They're very, very different. So hopefully you get something out of it. So when I start thinking about talking today, I was reminded of the situation with Jesus in the Bible. I don't know if it's in the Bible or where it is, but he's passing some man that is going to stone a woman that has committed adultery. In Judaism that is very, very, very terrible, and also Islam. But Christianity and Islam come from Judaism. That's why it's so violent. Jesus is passing this man and he says, the first of you that has not committed adultery, neither in real life or in your imagination, you can throw the first stone. Not a single stone is thrown. Not a single stone is thrown, because they had to look at themselves, these men. And of course, thousands of times they have been thinking about being with other women, and maybe even practice it. And now they're going to stone her for doing it. So this little incident, it also shows me that it's true that Jesus lived with the Buddhists in Varanasi for most of his life, actually. Many has come to that conclusion independently of each other. There was a Russian scientist that went the whole way from Palestine over Afghanistan and to Kashmir, where he's buried, Jesus. He's buried in a little village called Balgam, and it means the shepherd. And another German also investigated into it, and he knew, okay, I have to get a hold of the Tibetan Buddhism to really know the truth, because they know everything what has happened. So he waited quite a long time, this German, for seeing a Lama. And when he came into the Lama and he asked this question, tell me, did Jesus really die in India? And the Lama looked at him and said, why are you so interested in a man dying 2,000 years ago? Who are you? I love that one. So many have looked into it and agreed that, but he was actually very short in Palestine after being along the Buddhist. And this way he's treating these men that will stone this woman. It's pure Buddhism. Because the Buddhism will go in, whenever there is a judgment, a tendency to judge the person, you will go, as a Buddhist, you will go into yourself and ask, could I come into a situation where I could do the same thing? And of course, there is no judgment. There is just compassion. Compassion means the same passion, the same desire, the same state. Compassion. I am just like you. So compassion is very easy to understand from an awakened point of view. But let me see if I can say something more about this with the Buddhism. So this state in Buddhism, where you ask this question, could I do the same thing? It's still dualistic. And also Jesus asking this question to these men, it's a dualistic still. They still two. So this is Buddhism as an organized religion. If you go into Buddhism as awakening, a path to awakening, and you start, instead of talking about Buddhism, you start talking about bodhicitta, the truth that we are, then you will be very different in a situation when people do something. You will not react if you are clear, because reaction is the ego. So also somehow when you, as they do, Jesus do with these people, that they go back and look at themselves, it's still the ego, and they're still two, they're still dualistic. But if you actually have gone beyond reaction and begin to respond, because even if you're awakened, it doesn't mean that you are not doing anything. But it's not a reaction, it's not a blame. It is a respond. And it can be many things. It can be, it's not healthy if you do things like that. But it's not judgment. And it's a big difference. Because you can go on and on, for instance, when you work with therapy. I've been working with therapy for 47 years. And you are not really finished before you wake up. It will still linger there that you had to forgive the parents. But parents is still separated from you. You still see it from a dualistic point of view. Yeah, I worked 5 years forgiving my parents, what they did to me. And it's presupposed that these parents had a free will to act in a certain way. But the truth is they did not have a free will. So when you wake up, you realize that there's no personal doership. There's no ego really. It's created with the mind. It's conditioning. There is no ego. So the same second you realize that in you, you forgive everything you have met. Everybody you have met. There's no need to do any techniques or any attempt, because you realize it's all God. It's all one. So there is no father really there that could have acted otherwise. Just like you could not act otherwise either, because you identified with the personality and believed in that. But anyway, even though you were identified with the personality, with the ego, you are still acting from a non-dual reality, because there is only God. The rest is imagination. You yourself believe that you have a free will to act, but you don't. There is no free will and no determination. It's all philosophy, it's all the mind. So the moment you are waking up, and it can happen so simple, so spontaneously, it's a moment where there's no thoughts, where you are still, where you are maybe just contemplating the beauty of nature, or you are in love with someone and you're totally present without thinking. In that moment, all blame, judgment falls away, and there is a spontaneous forgivingness. There is spontaneous compassion, but it's not something you're thinking about. It's not something you philosophizing, a conclusion you are drawing after 5 years of working with your father or your mother in therapy. So, of course, therapy can help you coming on the way, and can help you to become more and more clear about the misunderstanding that there's somebody there who chooses to do something to you. It's not so. So when you wake up, the whole world is somehow waking up from your point of view. But you can still respond to people. But they will not feel blamed or feeling judged or feeling wrong. I have also been criticized by awakened teachers in India. But I never felt that they was attacking me. They were saying something about my behavior that was not constructive, that I should maybe consider changing. And when there was no reactive in it, no blame, no judgment, I could take it in. Because when we are getting judged or getting blamed, we are automatically come in a protection situation and start fighting and reacting back. Ego react to ego. But if you are being responded to from an awakened teacher, you cannot react. It's simply impossible. because also you can feel that you are not blamed. He or she is responding with love, that maybe you should consider doing something else. So forgivingness, compassion, is natural in the awakened state without doing any gymnastic. Because you can see the Buddhists, when they do this, going back to themselves and ask themselves, could I be brought in a situation where I could do the same thing? It's still somehow, a mind game. It works for sure. It's a good one. I love it. And Jesus, you can see, he was brought up by the Buddhists when he responding that to these men that will stone that woman. The first of you that has never committed adultery, not even in your thinking, you can throw the first stone. They are forced to look into themselves. That is the Buddhist way. You must look into yourself. And it's very rarely we do that here. We are just reacting out because we know nothing about really looking into ourselves. We know nothing about really going into the heart. We don't learn it. It's not part of our conditioning. And Buddhism is beautiful, fantastic, and it's also Asia. So they would never have stoned Jesus in Buddhism. Never, never, never. Like they did in Judaism, Christianity. It was actually Judaism.
Crucified.
Yeah, crucified, yeah. Sorry. So this is a difference between when you come from a dualistic point of view or you come from a monistic, realized. So it's not that you will not say anything or do anything, but there will not be any condemnation in it, blame, judgment. It will come from compassion, because from the awakened point of view, we are all the same.
So you could say that it's like when you are enlightened in this way, you see the world as it's okay as it is. I mean, you don't want to change it. You can give an advice to somebody, but it's up to him if he wants to follow it or not. It's kind of this, everything is okay as it is.
Yeah. Let me tell you a story from the Sufism. The master was traveling with the disciple and their camel. They had all their stuff on the camel, and they stopped at a place where they could sleep, an inn. And the master said, you take care of the camel, to the disciple. And when they came out in the morning, the camel was gone. And the master said to the disciple, what, did you not take care of the camel? No, master, because you always say that Allah is doing everything. So I thought Allah was also take care of the camel. And the master said, tie the camel and trust in Allah. So we are still responding, but we also know that it's all Allah. It's not really me. It's still Allah that does everything. It's a very subtle, not so easy to really understand with the dualistic mind. But when you come into your awakening, you will know. And when you come into your awakening, you can simply not do something that is wrong. You cannot. And you know all the time, even though it seems like you acting, it's the divine. You know it. Because you feel this oneness all the time. And when your body is walking, it's not you walking. It's a very also normal meditation used in Buddhism with mindfulness. To walk with mindfulness is not just about being here now that many people believe. Oh, I have to be here now, I have to be here now, I have to be here now. It's actually to come to realize that you are not going anywhere. It's the body walking. You are not going. And this is pure delight. If you can feel that, my God, I've never gone anywhere. And this that has never gone anywhere is God. You are one with the divine. But it appears as a body walking, as trees, as other bodies, as feelings, as thoughts, but this appearance. And in the West we have no idea about that. It's the East that has looked so deeply into impermanence, that everything is impermanent, and when you really realize that, you come into your clarity, you wake up. Yeah. So this, you had to feel this difference between appearance and reality. All that we are sensing with forms and names is appearance. And appearance means that it has no essential nature in itself. If I look at a thing, a chair or whatever, I can give it a name, but if I start looking for a chair, it disappears. There's no chair. We live in labels and concepts. It's simply like if you are walking in the desert, and you are thirsty, and you are nearly dying, and then you see water. You see an oasis, and it's, oh my God, I'm saved, and you're running, and you find out there is no water. Your desire created it. It's so obvious. The more thirsty you were, the more real was the oasis. And it's just an example of how we are creating Maya appearance. So we have to work with the forgivingness and compassion, and in the right way, not as an ego trip. Oh, I forgive you. Yeah, okay, I forgive you. This is not forgivingness. It's a mind game. And most of us knows nothing else. That your wife has gone out with another man and comes home. I have experienced it. And she's sitting there and crying, and she's been with another man, and what are you doing? When it happened to me many years ago, I went out into the kitchen and smashed the whole kitchen. Because I had no idea about going into myself and meet and come with some kind of forgivingness from there. No. I had such a reaction, so much anger. So I smashed the whole kitchen, and it helped a little bit. But actually I never forgave her. Never. It actually never really worked. Because somehow I have not gone into myself and asked, could I have been in a situation and do the same thing? And then of course I would have said yes. Of course I could. So in the West we know nothing about true forgivingness and true compassion. It's all a mind game. And so that's why I give this little talk. And yeah. So, you who are listening to this little video, you can close your eyes and you can think about somebody that did something that was not right and whatever, and you have to forgive that person. And then think about it for a moment. And also think about it in the traditional Western way, that we will try to repress the anger, we will repress the sadness, and say, oh, I forgive you. But we have not understood it. It's not coming from a deep understanding. You look at this person that has done something that is not right. And just like Jesus said to these men, you go into yourself and see, could you be brought in a situation where you could actually do the same thing? Because we are all human. We are all actually the same. You look a little bit, could you? Just like these men that were to stone that woman, none of them could throw a stone. Because they had all committed adultery in their mind or in praxis. So they could not stone this woman. That was a great opportunity for them actually to wake up a little. Now you look again, and then you ask yourself, could I be brought into a situation that I could actually do the same? Do I have the same tendency deep in me that I'm blaming my girlfriend or my boyfriend? And feel it. Feel the feeling. Yeah, it's good. Feel all the feelings that comes up, and then if you go a little deeper, can you not see that we are all one? Essentially, it's not about this incident now that you're working with. No, it's everything. That we are actually one reality. Then when you take it deeper into awakening, into enlightenment, that there is no one to blame and there is no one blaming. That's the reality. In reality, it's appearance, all this. Some bodies that we have identified with blaming other bodies. When we wake up, all this is like a dream. And we see we are the dreamer. We are dreaming all this. Both the one we are blaming and the one that is blaming. Then you come into clarity. And it doesn't mean you will not say something, but it will not have a charge. It will not have this charge that you want to change the other, that you are blaming, that you are reacting. No. From this point of view, you are sharing. You just share yourself. And that we know nothing about in the West, this kind of. So also why I give this little talk now. That we could come a little deeper in, that could start going a little bit in and become more aware about ourselves, because all the wars and all the destructiveness and violence would start disappearing. Because it's happening out of ignorance. In my hippie time in the 60s, 70s, we had a slogan that say, imagine that there was a war and nobody came to it. Imagine that there was a war and nobody came to it. Because many of us has already been touched by the East, by Buddhism and Advaita. And imagine that nobody want to come to this war. Then Putin has to fight with Donald. They have to fight alone if they want to have a fight. Nobody's interested to come and take part in it. But we can always get the soldiers, even though they risk their life. It's amazing. So that was a very beautiful slogan in the 60s. Imagine there was a war and nobody came to it. I love it. Please, I'm not interested. Why should I kill these other people? Why? And they are myself, essentially. How could I do that? Yeah. You want to say something to it, or do we stop now? Okay.